Welcome to the Trend Detection Podcast, powered by Siemens. And now your host, Liz McGinn.
Hi, everyone. I'm Liz McGinn. I work for Senseye Predictive Maintenance and Marketing. And today we have an exciting podcast. Our topic will be about, for SMEs, digital transformation begins with understanding their current operations. This episode discusses how Siemens tools like Predictive Service Analyzer help small and medium businesses identify inefficiencies and unlock potential for growth without requiring extensive resources. And I'm joined here today by Anton. Anton, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. Hi, Liz. Thank you for having me on this podcast. My name is Anton Sierling. I'm located in Germany. From the responsibility point of view, I'm pretty much into digital, and what I'm doing is I am leading the digital efforts at Siemens for a certain part of the digital portfolio coming from Siemens to our customers and clients.
Awesome. Do you want to kind of explain what Predictive Service Analyzer is, as I mentioned it in the beginning?
Yes, sure. The Predictive Service Analyzer is another tool, so to say, that we have on our side. And the Predictive Service Analyzer is basically, what does it do? It is basically an application. It is a tool, and it is trying to understand different parameters from, say, assets, like physical parameters from the assets, and based upon these parameters, it is trying to prevent downtimes, any downturns in the production, which might be caused by this or that asset, which is kind of like observed, so to say, by the PSA. So the PSA itself PSA itself is basically, so to say, kind of like observer for that for the assets that are deployed in the field.
Okay. I did kind of jump in, but let's talk about kind of getting started and kind of setting that foundation of getting into these tools. So why is an assessment essential for SMEs?
Yeah, that's basically a very good question, right? So assessment is essential for the SMEs. Perhaps right at the beginning, what might be important is to kind of like explain what are we talking about. So what is the assessment itself, and what are the SMEs? I mean, small and medium enterprises, quite clear. It's very much dependent on their revenue, so to say, but they're also on number of employees, but of course also a number of assets in the field, because we're Siemens, we're trying to focus pretty much on the shop floor, not shop floor only. But from my point of view, my focus is very much the shop floor itself. So also in this regards, we're trying to distinguish the small companies, the medium companies, from the bigger companies, like, for example, Tetra Pak, where we see different lines, different assets, several assembly lines connected one to another. So we are more focused on the smaller productions, like let's say maybe something around 50 assets or something like this in the field. They have something between 50 or 200 assets in for medium companies. So this is our range. When we're talking about the assessment itself, the assessment is, on another hand side, what is the assessment? So the assessment is getting in the first touch, very intimate touch, perhaps, with our client, and to understand, or with the customer, and to understand, like, where are they in the sense of digitalization, and what they're trying to pursue in the sense of digitalization. And the why is the foundation. Why it is very important is because SMEs are often operated with a very lean resources, not only in regards to the people itself, but also in regards to the financial resources. and basically the right allocation of those resources, manpower as well as money, so to say, is very important for them. So they do not want to waste the money and the man hours, the resources, so they want to allocate it correctly and right. They want to avoid any inefficiencies during this process of allocation. This is where we could support using this, basically using this assessment itself.
Do we have like a Siemens assessment?
Yes, indeed. So, as given the fact that Siemens does operate in different industries, in different verticals, in the process industry, in the discrete industry, we have several assessments which are not only for digital but also very industry related. From the very digital point of view, we have an assessment, of course, also which is more towards digital maturity of the customer itself. It gives us the possibility to have a look, to have a more insight, to have a more actionable insight, perhaps into the installed base, how we call it, in the field, but then also to understand what is the landscape of installed base, what is the legacy systems of installed or within installed base, and what is basically also the architecture which is behind or say between the shop floor and installed base, the enterprise level and the cloud level. So we're not only talking about the hardware itself on the field, but we're also talking about the connecting architecture. And so to connect all those puzzle parts, so to say, we do have different different assessments, of course, from Siemens' point of view. But in the sense of digitalization, there is only a few, and not if not only one to have to understand, to assess this customer, to the customer, and understand inefficiencies, as I say, and provide the customer with some improvement levers.
Nice, that's really good to know. How does Predictive Service Analyzer support the SMEs in this assessment phase?
Well, the Predictive Service Analyzer, how does it support in this phase? Can we just make a short pause? Is that possible, or is that
For what?
Just to clarify, because I think we have kind of like a mismatch, perhaps, because so the assessment itself and the PSA, they are not really connected one to another, you know.
Okay.
So if we are talking like just to have this step back, so the PSA itself, right? So we have the assessment, of the digital maturity, so to say, at the customer side, right? So that's the first step. So we make the assessment. The PSA itself is just an application to get the data on a very high frequency. It's just one of the solutions which can enable customer to do something better, right? To prepare the data towards Senseye. So we can talk about the assessments itself, which is the very foundation, like to understand what is the problem at the customer side and this and this and that. So, but then the PSA is just a solution, is just an application at the very end of that. We can talk about both. It's not a problem. I'm just trying to get this connection right between this assessment, which is more on the, say, consultative part of that, and then the PSA, which is kind of like really the solution, which is, so to say, in the whole sales journeys, is more, say, at the end of the story.
Okay.
So Yes.
Maybe okay. So I was following along to the questions that was prepared, but maybe let's like skip over that one and maybe come back to that in the end. So we'll just like skip over the predictive service analyzer and because it goes back into this assessment. So maybe it's leaning heavily onto building that foundation. And then, okay, so once you build part of that foundation, like how can getting these into it, how do you start adding products like Predictive
Yes.
Service Analyzer?
Yeah. So if we, I believe this might be the way forward. If we just talk about like the SMEs themselves, what kind of problems they might have, or what is the most important problem right now at the customer side, having all those assessments, I kind of like have this experience to, we could talk about this, what is the most driving challenge at the customer side right now in the sense of cost, in the sense of improvements also, and then we can position the PSA as the one of the possible solutions to drive and to reach those improvements and stuff like this. But then, of course, I'm not sure if you want to put Senseye into the place, so to say, as other solution, or is that
Does
kind of
predictive does PSA and Senseye work together?
Yeah.
Okay, then we can like slip it in kind of at the end.
Yeah.
And maybe do you mind if we like a little bit restart?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Let's do that.
Let's restart now that we've got a better storyline because these questions are out of order and it makes more sense the way that we were going to do it. So
yeah, no
sorry,
problem.
Will, for listening to 10 minutes of us jabbering on. We'll restart now. Will's the editor, so sometimes I leave him notes. Okay.
No problem.
Hi, everyone. I'm Liz McGinn. Today, we will be talking about building the foundation for SMEs, and I'm joined here by our expert, Anton.
Hi, Liz. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
No problem. Hi, Liz. Thank you very much first off for having me on this podcast. As said already, my name is Anton. What I'm doing is I'm leading the digital efforts at Siemens, at one of the business units. So within Siemens, we're mostly focused on the shop floor. Within our Siemens, across all verticals, we have a couple of core, perhaps, activities and responsibilities within our business unit. So I think throughout the podcast itself, the focus of our activities will be more more visible, so to say. But to come back once again to my responsibility, actually, I'm responsible for, as I said, digital activities, digital portfolio, and business development and sales of the digital portfolio within the business unit.
Nice. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
I guess we'll hop right in. Do you want to actually explain a little bit on what are SMEs?
Yes, no problem. So, as we're talking today about the SMEs, from our understandings, and I hope pretty much that this understanding will be in line with a common determination and definition of the SMEs. What we are understanding as a SME, as a small and medium company, is not only in the sense of revenue, in the sense of the number of employees, but also in the sense of the number of assets, so to say. As we are pretty much focused on the shop floor itself, shop floor production operations, activities, everything which is related somehow to production, manufacturing activities in discrete in discrete industries, in process industries. We are considering small and medium enterprises also by the number of assets, so to say, by the number of lines and machines explicitly, which are located on the shop floor itself. So we are adding the third dimension, so to say, to this definition of the SME. Apart from revenue and the number of employees, we're also considering the number of assets at the shop floor itself.
Are there specific challenges that SMEs face when kind of starting their digitalization journey?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good question, and I think that's the most important one, also in to the current times. So in the process of kind of like this discussion, communication, interlink with the companies, small, medium companies, let's call it companies, clients in general, we're trying to understand what actually are the challenges. But I think before move on to the challenges, I think the way of understanding those challenges pretty much important also. Since we're talking about digitalization, digital transformation, and the customer side, it's very important to understand what is meant actually by the digital transformation at the customer side. So what we're doing is we oftentimes trying to assess the digital maturity at the customer side. So we're trying to execute the process of supporting the clients throughout the digital transformation, so to say, very very much step by step. So starting with the assessment, this is the point in time where we are really getting in a very deep understanding on the customer operational processes, production, manufacturing processes, independently if it's automotive vertical, if it's food and bev vertical, if it's water and wastewater vertical. We're trying to understand the current situation at the customer side, the current challenges at the customer side, what is already there, what is already available, and how we could basically assist the customer throughout the whole process of the digital transformation, throughout the execution of their own strategy. So we're doing this assessment, and oftentimes, actually, to be absolutely honest, all of the clients that have assessed so far, and we executed this type of digital assessment, so to say, on their side, what we understood is that there are mainly two very general, very challenging issues that the clients are facing right now. Number one is the rising costs, and number two is the quality. So those are the main two challenges we are very much engaging, or this is the basis, so to say, for us as Siemens, to engage with the clients to try to guide them to solve those issues on their side.
So, what do you mean by quality?
Yeah, so as said, two main challenges: the costs and the quality. If we're trying to break it down into fractions, so to say, the cost is always the manpower throughout the production, throughout the operational processes. It is always the manpower you assign to the process to execute the process itself, but then of course the manpower you assign to maintain the process, so the maintenance, the operations itself, and of course the spare parts. So everything what is kind of like from the shop floor point of view, what is needed to execute the process. So we're trying to look at those costs, so like operations, productions, maintenance, spare parts, in the sense of costs itself, and then the other issue and the main challenge is of course the quality, and the quality is kind of like, yes, as you can imagine, the quality is extremely important towards the customer, because they also may lose some money on that. What we're trying to do is kind of like to understand, is there any context available from the shop floor itself or from the production data, how to improve, how to understand the issues with the quality, and how to improve those issues. So what we are trying to have a look here explicitly is which processes, which steps within the process, which assets perhaps, or which behavior of those assets influence very much the quality, and if there is a way on how to improve basically this quality by, say, monitoring or observing those assets and improving the conditions of those assets. This is the quality itself. So we're trying to have a look more on the processes, on the asset data, to influence the quality. And then the costs, as I said, What about the maintenance? What about the operational costs? What about the spare part costs? How we can use the data from those factors of production, so to say, and improve those to reduce the costs.
Nice. So product quality is what we're talking about. I know.
Yes.
If it's
Pretty
not
much.
up to snuff, then you can lose a lot of product if your machines start to malfunction. So that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
That is exactly the point. That is exactly what we're trying to improve the product quality, pretty much using the data. So, by the way, it's basically the data is pretty much what we're trying to understand, what we're trying to use for the costs, for reduction of costs, and improvement of the quality. So the data is everything. I think the data is number one asset in today's time, and each and everybody. I think in manufacturing, in the manufacturing industry, is trying to make a use of this data, trying to put the data into context, to utilize the data somehow to reach some improvements in the process, in costs and quality whatsoever. In our day-to-day work, in our day-to-day interaction with the customers, we're trying to use the data explicitly for the costs, for the maintenance costs, for the operational costs on the shop floor, and the quality itself.
Yeah. So can you give us a little bit more information about kind of what we're looking at when these assessments are being formed?
Yeah, sure. When we perhaps let me start to break it down from the very beginning. So what we're trying to do during this assessment is our three major aspects. We are trying to understand the whole situation around the customer itself, right? So, what is the strategy right now in the sense of digital? Where are they moving to, right? So, the current situation, the status quo, so to say, what is available at their side, what is the maturity at the customer side? If there are already some initiatives or some proof of concept, perhaps running, what kind of systems are already installed at the place. So the status quo, the strategy, the vision, so to say, the what is already available at the site. Then we are in the first. This is what is done in the first phase. In the second phase, we are trying to make a deep dive into into technical aspects. We're trying to break down the processes itself. We're trying to have a look into the production itself. We are trying to have a look into the maintenance processes itself, and of course in the fundamentals. What I mean by production is, do they have enough data? Do they analyze the data properly? Do they have the analytics to understand the processes itself? As said, mainly focused on the shop floor itself, but of course using digital. So how can the digital support the processes on the shop floor, on the production, maintenance, and fundamentals? So for the production, analytics extremely important. How could the cost be reduced by using the data? The second is, of course, the maintenance itself. So do I have enough data coming from the assets, so to say? Are the assets completely observed and monitored in the right way, so we can we can derive some conclusions on that? And the third one is more the fundamentals, so to say. Do we have enough? Do we have enough? How should I put it in the right way? As we call it at Siemens, connectivity, right? So if the data is already available, if we need to extend this data, if we need perhaps to apply in other applications to make a use out of this data, to monitor the assets in a more proper way, perhaps on more frequently, if the connection itself is secure. So basically, what is happening, just once again to wrap it up, in the second phase, we're having a look at the production itself. Enough data, yes, no. Analytics, yes, no. The second part of that is, of course, the maintenance, how we can reduce the maintenance efforts. Perhaps predictive maintenance might be one of the cases, and then do we have enough groundwork's already done at the customer side, if the connection between the shop floor, the enterprise level, the cloud level is already available, if it's secure, if enough data is flowing, do we need to extend this data somehow and stuff like this. So everything around data, around digital applications, which are making use out of this data for the production itself, for the maintenance process itself, where we kind of like really technically assessing the landscape at the customer side. And then, of course, the third phase in this assessment is to provide the customer with some actionable activities, with some tangible use cases, so to say, and to start some improvements already by recommending maybe the quick wins to the customer. So as soon as we have the full picture at the customer side from where they want to go, how the processes are running towards the recommendation. So we think that this is kind of like the complete picture, the complete assessment from the digital point of view, and then we can start and move on to to applying and providing some actionable solutions, some actionable steps towards perhaps monitoring of the assets, extracting more data, extending the data, enriching the data, applying analytics, and then moving backwards, so to say, to prove that those use cases, those solutions are really providing the value, so to say, that we were talking about, that there is a return on investment is also available, and the customer is seeing some improvements on the cost side, on the value side, on the bottom line, so to say, of their productions. And it is tangible also to the customer, because this, by the end of the day, those assessments, I think they're extremely important, because it's digital is very intangible, right? It's not a motor, it's not a kind of like a drive system that you can just sell to the customer. So we're trying to apply those assessments to prove to the customer that digital is, even though it is intangible at the first glance, so to say, it's still providing some value by the end of the day. But it's a kind of like a journey from the very beginning until the very end.
Yeah, that sounds like a very robust kind of assessment there. What happens if people, what can happen if people don't actually take that assessment seriously, or even do an assessment?
Well, I mean, of course, if there are some customers and they are already completely aware of what is going on, they know exactly what they need, so to say. There is no need for such an assessment, right? So there is no need for assistance from our side if they are completely aware of the current situation, where they want to know, where they want to go, what are the gaps, and what kind of technologies they would like to apply. So if this information is completely at their side, so there is no need for assessment, right? There is just the time for action. And we also can support during this time for action. So if the gaps are completely clear, if they know exactly what to do and how to move forward, no problem. We are also pretty much often to support the customers on really applying the technology, not only kind of like being the partner throughout the concept phase, but also being the partner throughout the application phase of this technology. So I think Siemens, and this is one of the greatest benefits of Siemens, is kind of like being the partner from the very beginning in the assessment, in the concept phase, down until the end to the ramp up and go live phase, so to say. So we're able to assist in independently from the phase, I think. So we have enough resources.
I like that there's a partner within it, because I know it gets kind of difficult, especially I've worked in manufacturing, in marketing, but I understand how difficult it can be to kind of get the buy-in from all the digitalization, especially if it's newer tech that they're not super familiar with or comfortable with. I know it can be like on the IT people just to kind of push it, like get everything installed, and then it's like forcing the others to kind of follow along.
Yeah, that's actually, you are mentioning very, very, very crucial point of digitalization at all. And I mean, the point of change management, right? So you have to pick everybody. You have to pick it up, the whole mass of people, all of the employees from different departments, not only the production itself, maintenance, perhaps IT, but also the management. You have all of those employees, all of those people. They have to embark on this together on this journey from the very beginning until the very end. And that's one another benefit out of this assessment itself. So so doing this assessment, you bringing the people together, you breaking up the silos, and they talk about their issues, about their problems in a very open atmosphere, so to say, without having any problems to raise the hand and say, all right, I have the challenge here, I have the issue over there. And this is opening the perception, the perspective also for the management, in making the management basically aware of what is going on the very, sometimes very operational level. That's quite important. That's the one hand side. On another hand side, the consequence out of this is that you're getting already the buy-in from the management for doing some changes in the operation. So that's very good. So because sometimes the budget itself, the budget allocation is done, of course, on the management side, but the people in the operation need this allocation. So we can support them basically by conducting such a workshop, by conducting such an assessment to break out the silos, to show to the management, all right, guys, look, you have an issue over here, or you have the issues over there. On the technology part, we can support you, but throughout this assessment, we kind of like bringing you all together and showing to you, this is your gap, this might be the use case, and this might be the technology behind this.
That's awesome. Can you share an example of how an assessment like this benefited an SME?
Yes, that's for sure. There are maybe two examples that I would like to show up for that. The one was at the very beginning of my career, so to say, in engagement or engaging with the customers. There was I would say it's a medium company. It's a OEM. So the manufacturer itself, they're producing machines for tire industry. It's a medium company located in Slovakia, and they were pretty much struggling with the quality itself, the quality of the machines. They would like to not the products that the machines are manufacturing, but the machines itself. So they would really like to kind of like monitor and remotely access those machines. They would like to understand what is the root cause if something failing, but they would also like to reduce the costs of maintenance of their own machines at the customer side. So once again, quality and the costs, it's kind of like the headline, I think, for everybody. So what we've done after 3 days of this assessment, we understood that the problem that they have right now is that they do not have enough access, they do not have enough data to those machines. After conducting this workshop, we came up with some use cases. We came up with some solutions. We also came up with the most important thing for the customer at that point of time, is that we came up with a very elaborated architecture of how to deploy those technologies. So, and I think that was the most important thing. The not to understand the issue, they were at the stage where they understood the issue itself, but what was missing is basically the architecture, how technology could basically support them on solving this issue. After application of this technology, after going into the pilot, after connecting the machines, after extracting the data, they were able to reduce the cost of maintenance, because not by improving basically, and that was a very, kind of like a funny thing, not by improving the quality of their own machine, but by having the evidence that the maintenance of their machines at site was not done properly. So the quality was basically completely fine, but they were able to reduce the cost of maintenance for their own machines. That was one of applications, one of the benefits, one of the consequences of this assessment. One another example is more in the paper and wood industry. We were engaging with a customer who were completely unconnected, so to say. That there were absolutely no data flowing back and forth, and they were missing a lot of time in between the steps. What we've done is basically we were able to not only to understand the issue, which is kind of like no data is available, processes are still standing, and they're losing time, they're losing, of course, money on those steel stands, so to say. But what we also understood is that, as said, the data is not enough, and so by extracting, so to say, not only by extracting, but by integrating all of the processes into one architecture on the enterprise level, by connecting all of the sources of the data where the data is produced, so to say, and making this data visible in the sense of dashboards, they were able to reduce the lead time for the production planning, but then also to reduce the lead time for production itself, because they were able to sequence the steps, the production in a better way, so to say. So it's all depending on the data, it's all depending on the connectivity, basically, by the end of the day, and of course it all depends on the availability of the production. So availability is extremely important here, also to mention that not only data, I mean, the data is basically the foundation, but then it goes towards the availability. If your production is available, if your production is properly maintained, and not just like you're losing time, you're losing money by maintaining this production each and every, I don't know, like 2 months or so. So that's another part of that.
Those are really great examples. I think it's interesting to kind of prove that the assessments are not only great for like your whole digitalization journey, but also for just in general, just making sure your process is going smoothly.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I think it's also good, because in the sense of concrete use cases, a lot of people talking about the digitalization, like, yeah, we were doing digital transformation and stuff like this, like general strategies and everything. But by the end of the day, it's very hard to find a real tangible, let me say, tangible use case for this technology. It's sometimes it's very hard. By doing those assessments, we are pretty good, I think, at uncovering those use cases at the customer side. That's one good thing, I think, for the customer, because it's kind of like it is a structured approach, and everybody is able to we kind of like gathering everybody, we're embarking everybody on the digital journey. So we're breaking out the silos, we're showcasing what is the use case for your digitalization, but then apart from that, we're the right partner to deploy this technology in the context of this or that use case. So, as said, it's the whole journey from discovering those use cases, identifying the gaps, finding out the gaps, down to deploying the technology and see the value, see the benefit out of this.
Nice. Is there like a way that Siemens tailors these assessments specifically for SMEs?
I would say definitely. Before starting with those assessments, before meeting with the customer with the client in person, we're trying to understand as much as possible the client itself. So we're trying to pre-analyze what is already available in public, how much Siemens did work already with this client, what was the point of working, so to say, together with clients. So it's not just a standard approach where we open the questionnaire and go through all the questions like from one to the end. There is an exchange with the client. So what are the focus topics perhaps at the customer side? What are they interested into? If that's maybe the energy, if they would like to make a deep dive into energy reduction, if they would like to reduce the cost itself. The cost reduction might be one of the important points, but then we need to understand what kind of cost they would like to. Is that the man hours, if that the downtimes, if that's I don't know, maybe it's spare parts or something like this. So before engaging with the customer, we're trying to understand what Siemens has been or has done so far for their client, but also what is important for the client itself. If they have specific KPIs, if they want to reduce the energy by this and this percentage, if they want to cut the cost by this and this percentage, if they would, I don't know, perhaps increase the quality by this and this percentage. So we need the KPIs that we are able to work along, so to say.
Nice. That's good to know that you can specialize it in making sure we're making the customers excited about, meeting their goals versus whatever we think their goals should be.
That's for sure. So the goals of the customer, of the client itself is extremely important for us. Not only kind of like how does it fit to their strategy, but then also, as I said, the KPIs itself. Because by the end of the day, the KPIs is what is monitored. And this is what we're trying to support our clients also to reach. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So if we have this foundation here with this assessment, what's kind of the next stepping stones in this journey of the digitalization?
So that's a good question. So usually what is happening is that frankly speaking, as at the point in time when we're starting with this assessment, all those assessment, digitalization, digital transformation, all the stuff around digital is kind of like it's how should I put it? So the clients are facing a lot of challenges, a lot of problems. They know that the digital landscape from several suppliers is very rich, so to say. So each and everybody is kind of like providing their own tools for digitalization. So they're kind of like looking very critically at this. In the first step, we need to convince them that we are here because of you. We are not selling something. As soon as this stage is done, as soon as we're making a deep dive into into the challenges, into the gaps, and as soon as we have this trust established with the customer, and the whole workshop, the whole assessment is done, we are supplying the documentation, of course, the report where we're showcasing, all right, this is your, those are the results, those might be the gaps, those might be the improvement levers, those are our recommendation, how to act upon this. Of course, we're not leaving the client alone. So what we're trying to do is, of course, to follow up on this and to suggest kind of like the best next step or the quick win on that, and then to open up the project and kind of like they execute on the results of this assessment itself.
Nice. Can you give us an example of some products that might be kind of recommended in these early stages?
Yeah, sure. As said, most of the time we're trying to focus on costs. We're trying to focus on availability. We're trying to focus on quality. Talking about the costs, as said, we're trying to break it down into man hours. We're trying to break it down into spare parts. We're trying to break it down into the downtimes. So if you have a look at this, so we're talking about production, right? We're talking about production. We're talking about the maintenance also. One of the best next steps, so to say, what is really easy to implement, but might have a lot of impact in sense of business, in sense of costs, is some very lean, very easy to integrate application, right? So this might be something like we would like to, in the first place, we would like to have an infrastructure and monitor our assets more precisely. We would like to reduce our downtimes. We would also like to monitor our assets, and not only to reduce the downtimes, perhaps the availability and the number of times downtimes is perfectly fine, but we would be able to monitor our assets and to reduce the number or the amount of man hours consumed by maintenance, or the number of spare parts consumed by maintenance, and so to decrease basically the bottom line and the operational costs. If you're talking about this, I mean, no problem. What we're trying to suggest each and every time for the cost reduction is something which is very lean and very easy to integrate. This might be any kind of application which is running on a very easy to integrate infrastructure, like, for example, edge infrastructure. It might be something like PSA, which is a Predictive Service Analyzer, where we I mean, it's a very technical discussion right now, but what we're trying to do with this application is basically to extract the data and showcase to the customer that the condition of your asset is fine. You don't have to spend more hours, more spare parts, and stuff like this. So this might be one of the examples. Another example might also be for like a very scale up solution might be Senseye, right? So if you're having like more lines, more factories on the global level that you would like to compare one to another, right? Or you would like to improve the operational activities within. So Senseye is something which might be not the immediate first step, because it's a very global kind of like application, right? But it is a consecutive step as soon as you have enough data. And for the data, as said, Predictive Service Analyzer is extracting the data, is pushing the data into the cloud, into enterprise level. It is the perfect foundation for Senseye. It is a perfect foundation to gathering the data, to understanding the assets, to understanding the maintenance processes also. And by the end of the day, of course, to reduce the costs, to reduce the spare parts also. Just right now, I was in a call with our Brazil colleagues, and they're trying to support the customer on reducing the lubrication, so to say, for the machines. So how can we assess them, because they have an issue with spending too much of the efforts for the maintenance, too much of the also money, so to say, for the spare parts, for the lubrication itself. And so how could we assist over there? And yeah, so the first and foremost is, of course, to get the data. The PSA might be a good application just straight away.
Yeah, so getting started, knowing what your data is, and then finding some way to actually use that. So a product that you can use that to reduce those costs.
Yeah, you got it. So basically, get the data, understand the data, utilize the data, got your costs down, got your man hours down, improve your quality. That's how it goes.
Nice. Do you have any kind of final advice for SMEs?
Yeah. So the call to action would be call Siemens. But yeah, I think the most important thing is basically not to get distracted by all those terms and buzzwords as digital transformation and digitalization and stuff like this. I think it's extremely important just to keep calm and take this process step by step. Understand where you're at right now, just assess your maturity, understand where you're at, what is the gap, and what is the best fitting technology to your gaps, to your issues, to your challenges. And so just without having this purpose to promote the assessment itself, I think it's a very good approach. Basically, by the end of the day, to understand, to support the customer on understanding where they at, what is the maturity right now, and then act upon the issues and the gaps which are the most critical, the most crucial right now. Just to see the benefit, the value out of digitalization immediately and drive on those quick wins. I think this is the ultimate advice from my side. It's extremely important to understand where you're at. So what is your maturity and how to move forward before just kind of like randomly applying 1,000 technologies and then being completely disappointed because there is no value out of this. There is nothing. There is no data coming. I don't know, the architecture, the legacy systems are not feeding one to another. It's completely siloed. And just to get the right partner, and we will, of course, assuming that we are the right partner, we will guide you through all the process from the very beginning until the very end.
Perfect. It does. I think it also makes sense during the assessment phase is to kind of figure out what the goal is for everyone as you continue along that journey.
Sure. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah. Where do you actually want to end up? Do you want to be fully automated, or is it just reducing those costs?
Exactly. And I believe each and every company is completely different. I think at that point of time, considering the market situation, everybody is concerned about costs, which is completely right. But then what is, as you mentioned, what is the final goal? Is that being lights out manufacturing without having any intervention, any interaction of employees itself in the manufacturing process? Just think about semicon production, right? Or is that just to ensure that the processes are running smoothly and everybody we're delivering on the good quality, having the good availability, and this might be enough for you? So the goals are very different, and they differ according to the maturity itself. You cannot you cannot aim for being lights out manufacturer without having an MES system in place if you're just running on the paper. So so it's very ambitious goal in this case, but you have to adapt your goals according to where you're at right now. So
perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And your insights are super valuable. So I appreciate it.
Thank you to this. Thank you for taking your time and for joining me here in this podcast. Thank you very much for that.
Please like and subscribe on all major podcast channels and find out more about Senseye Predictive Maintenance at Siemens.com.